Hey everyone, today my guest is Alan Blakeborough or Blake, also known as F3 Zaro or Chief Disruption Officer and Entrepreneur. Um, we are going into the tax season, and Alan is working on the business called Tax Titans, which we'll cover today. But first of all, thank you for joining. And as since you're a veteran, wanted to thank you for your service too.
Thank you for your support. Great to be on.
All right. So could you remind us? We already had an episode with you probably around a year ago.
Yep.
You were actively working on Tax Titans. You were also part of Founder University
Yep.
cohort, as well as we did. So any major news, major updates, or just a reminder who you are, what you're working on?
So major updates for us. We have created an enterprise bridge for the accounting profession. Our first couple of years, we developed a marketplace for taxpayers to be able to connect with accounting professionals to get their taxes done. There's a shortage of accountants in the United States, so it becomes very hard to find somebody that's vetted and qualified that you can trust to do your taxes. So that was our first goal. And then through our first 2 years, we realized that there really wasn't a secure platform for accounting firms to be able to work with and transfer clients to other accounting firms, especially a large number of accounting firms in the United States are looking to have their owners retire. And they're having a hard time finding someone to buy their book of business. So we invented the Enterprise Bridge, which allows someone who has got an accounting firm, if they're looking for help, if they're looking to get rid of some of their pain in the butt clients, the ability to buy, sell, or trade clients over a platform that's dedicated just to the accounting professionals.
And that's also part of Tax Titans.
Correct. Yep. So we have three offerings. We have the marketplace, we have the enterprise bridge, and then we've also created a thing called the multi-pass system, which allows a taxpayer to go into a auto dealership, get their taxes done, take their tax refund and apply it as the down payment to buy a car, all without having to step into an H&R Block or a Jackson Hewitt.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of value is in your platform. How many users you have now?
So we have about 600 firms that are using it. We've got about 1,000 quotes that have gone through on the marketplace. And the multi-pass system is brand new, so we don't know yet how many we're going to have go through this year.
Yeah, that sounds not bad at all. The numbers. Did you attract some VC funding, or did you bootstrap it?
No, so we bootstrapped, and then we've gotten investment from partners in the accounting profession. We haven't received any institutional money because I joke around, even though I've talked to about 125 venture capital firms, none of them really understand the accounting profession, and none of them really understand taxes except that they pay taxes. So, it's one of those things where they say people don't invest in things they don't understand. So I'm taking that as one of the reasons why we haven't gotten any institutional money into the Tax Titans platform.
Did you try to tell them that you're gonna have an AI in your platform, and it would be like a switch, like for half of the investors?
That is something that we would like to have. We don't have it yet, but yeah, we tried explaining to people that we were going to have an AI option for onboarding clients, and that really didn't spark as much interest as well. So.
Yeah, true. Cool. So, is this your main business now, venture? Do you have anything on the side?
Oh
Beside?
yes. So I've got two other tech companies on the side. One is Secondhand Geek, which we went through Founder University with, and we actually had Jason Calacanis launch, be our first investors on our cap table. So that was
Congrats.
going well. That's got over 1,000 members on it, buying, trading, and selling tabletop gaming merchandise. So we're slowly pulling people away from eBay from that guard. And then we've got another thing called Replay Coaching, which is an application for youth athletes to work with their coaches to get video feedback on their performance at athletic competitions.
Yeah, that's quite a diverse set of businesses. And from what I understand, you're also pretty active in business networking in South Carolina, where you're based.
Yes.
Um, anything else in that space there?
Yeah, we're launching an actual tech village. We're going to have an 8,000 square foot, kind of like a WeWork co-working space for just tech companies. There's a lot of colleges and universities in the Greenville, upstate area of South Carolina. And unfortunately, we have a lot of young college graduates that have great ideas that are the next people to make the Ubers and Airbnbs and Amazons. They don't really have a network of people to go for mentoring or talent. So they wind up leaving the area and going to Austin or Silicon Valley or Atlanta or Charlotte. So I have a group of people that were trying to stop the bleeding of talent, keep them here, try to educate people who have investment money to invest in tech startups instead of real estate or a local restaurant, stuff like that, to invest in promising new tech startups. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I admire what you're doing there because as you said, many people from smaller towns or generally from the areas that are not as tech savvy, they tend to move to Silicon Valley, Austin, other places, maybe New York, Boston, and you're helping them cultivate this environment there locally in Greenville. Because I'm based down south in Pensacola, which is in on the Gulf of
Gulf of
America.
America now, yes.
America, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you would like get offended or not, but yeah,
Oh no, no, no. I'm
that's
all
good.
about it. So
Me too, me too. Cool. So I also noticed that here we also don't have a huge tech presence, even though it's quite a populated area with a lot of things going on with the Blue Angels headquarters, huge beaches, and stuff like that. But we don't have a lot of tech companies or even spaces where you can actually code and have this atmosphere, this environment of startup innovation. So that's really cool that you're working on improving things here in the South. Um, Great. So anything else you're involved with? Because I feel like you're a type of a person who does everything.
no, that's about it. Between the launch pad and the three tech companies and teaching fencing in the evening, I'm all full. So
Yeah, yeah. So you actually come from this fencing background where you started fencing the sport academy business. Could you
yep.
remind me what was the story behind that?
So I was one of those kids that had two left feet, two left hands, was overweight, and never got picked for a sporting team. I got exposed to fencing when I was a freshman in high school. The thing that I liked about it is it was an individual sport. So if I did really well, I got all the glory. If I did really bad, I didn't have anybody pointing fingers at me. The only person I had to blame was myself. So there wasn't a whole lot of available fencing competitions or coaches in my area. So I was the type of kid that would go to a competition, get his butt kicked, stay there all day, make notes of who would win and what they were doing, and then try to do that. So one of the things that I learned is that, you know, the biggest problem we had in the United States is we didn't have facilities where I could practice, 2, 3, 4 times a week. I could only go to the YMCA or a Boys and Girls Club once a week. So, from that aspect, I was like, in order to be able to grow fencing in the United States, we have to have facilities. And the only model that existed out there is kind of like with martial arts and Taekwondo. They were all over the place. So I just took their business model. And instead of punching and kicking people, we were stabbing them. So We basically took the same business model, charge a monthly fee. The big thing that exists for fencing that doesn't exist in the martial arts is if you get really good at fencing, you can get a college scholarship. There's about 70 colleges in the United States that have NCAA programs, and you can, get a scholarship. If you want to do something in the service, the Air Force Academy has an NCAA team, so you can, go to the Air Force Academy and fence on their NCAA team. I opened the fencing school actually in Florida, down in Fort Lauderdale, back in 1994. When I opened that one, there was only 4 in the entire United States. Now there's probably over 3,000. So they're not all mine, but everybody was like, if he can do it, then we can do it. And, that's 90% of the challenge for most people is believing that they can do it, see somebody else doing it, and then trying to either imitate them and do the same thing or do it slightly different so that, they can be successful too. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really inspiring that you took this passion for fencing, made a business out of it, and still practice that after like 30 years
Yep.
since you started. Yeah, that's great. You also, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, you served in the military,
Yep.
and um, I'm inspired by people who serve the country and then after they come back, they start businesses or innovate. Um, mm, like obviously veterans, you have many different people who go onto different paths, but you managed to turn your military career, your experience and learnings into the this whole business entrepreneurial world. So, what connects military to business, and how you applied your skills and your learnings from that life to your new life here in the business world?
So in the military, you have to be really organized and kind of focused. If you don't, then people get hurt real fast. So from that aspect, a lot of the organization that you have to have in starting a business from scratch, a lot of the same skills could be said are taught to people who are in the military as far as planning. Also, being in the military, no matter what branch you're in, isn't easy. And you talk to anybody who has started a company, it is probably the hardest thing in the world versus going and working for somebody else and just collecting a check. So from that aspect, a veteran is used to things being hard, overcoming challenges, not having their feelings hurt and wanting to go quit, because quitting in the military isn't an option. And if you're a business owner and stuff goes wrong, if a customer's not happy, if a system doesn't work and somebody's got to work on it at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to get it up again, a veteran is probably one of the people that's used to pulling all-nighters, not taking no for an answer, dealing with some type of setback and, basically powering through it to make sure that the quote-unquote mission gets done. I think that's the biggest thing. If you listen to other podcasts, other successful entrepreneurs, when people are asked, well, what is the one quality that you think makes a great entrepreneur? A lot of them say persistence. Be persistent, keep trying. And, that's a large part of the military. The military, it's like, okay, basic training, AIT, Ranger School, Airborne School, none of that stuff is fun. It sucks when you're going through it, but you just have to, put one foot in front of the other, one more wake up, one more meal, one more exercise, and then it's over with, and then, it's the same thing with, doing a, entrepreneurial startup, whether it's a tech company or a brick and mortar store. It's like, okay, you figure out how to make one customer satisfied and then 10 customers satisfied and then 1,000 customers. And, hopefully throughout the process of developing your product, your customers wind up being your best salespeople if you're doing it right. And then you have what, in the tech world, we always say is you want to have, a scalable company that, does the hockey stick, and, then everybody wants to use it. So there's been a lot of inferior products that have had great customer service that have done very well, and other products that were technically superior, but if the customer experience was shit, then nobody wanted to use it.
So my takeaway from this is discipline, persistence are the type of skills that military teaches you that you apply to business, which are super necessary if you want to succeed in the long run.
Yes, you are forced to have discipline in the military, whether you want to have it or not. We joke around that stupidity and a lack of discipline in the military is painful, and people try to avoid pain at all costs. So.
And since you already served for some number of years, you are used to having discipline. It's probably easier to keep yourself disciplined even after you're out of the military, since you already got used to that, and that's your normal state of mind.
Right. Well, I know what the consequences are if you don't have the discipline, and it's kind of like driving a car. If you fall asleep at the wheel and crash a car, the next time you're driving a car and you feel sleepy, you go, "Oh, well, I'm going to pull over and take a nap because I don't want to crash the car again." So.
Yeah, true. And you also served as a tank commander and a platoon commander.
Yep.
Uh, so um, you were a leader in your platoon, in your tank team. So those kinds of skills, the leadership, I can imagine you learn a bunch in the military that you apply now, having a team of people who execute under you in your business.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing about leadership that I tell people is, if you're going to do something and you're going to delegate to anybody else, make sure that when you give them the responsibility, you also give them the authority to get things done. To give somebody the responsibility to achieve something without giving them the resources and the authority to do it is just a recipe for disaster. So.
Do you follow Jocko Willing, the Navy
Yep.
SEAL
Yep.
commander?
I've read his books.
Yeah. So you generally agree with his approach to
Oh
leadership?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, his books. I actually just bought the second one, the Dichotomy of Leadership. I finished the first one, and it was amazing. It resonated with me a lot, and seeing the parallels between his experience in Iraq and normal corporate America is fascinating, because you see that basically the same set of skill applies to both worlds. Um, so that's really interesting. All right, going back to your experience, in the past year since we talked on the podcast, what's your biggest learning that you can share that you took from running your businesses?
For me, the having a good customer experience, for whoever your ideal customer is kind of paramount. Having a whole bunch of options um, is not as good as having one option that you do really, really well. So, a lot of people talk about focus or having a niche market. I think it boils down to what are you doing for your customer really, really well, that, they're willing to tell other people to use your product or service. It's one of the things that I've learned over 30 years in teaching fencing, to want people to have a good experience so that they encourage other parents to bring their kids into the sport. and watching now that be applied to the tech industry in building, whether it be a marketplace or a SaaS application. It's just as important in the tech digital internet world as it is in a brick and mortar, providing a, good cup of coffee or a great, meal at a restaurant.
Yeah. And again, it's great to see how different aspects of your life, different experiences, brick and mortar, tech world, fencing, military, other things combine into one um, like understanding of how certain things work. You see the different patterns, and it expands um, your again understanding to how run businesses, how to do certain things, and it just shows that it's helpful to not just be great at one thing specifically long over time, but also get exposed to different aspects of your of life of our world, whether it's business, military, anything else, because you can apply lessons from one to another. But as you said, it's also important to be good at something specific too, knowing that you have a certain set of skills that you are really good at.
Yeah, and the thing that I try to encourage everybody is, be a lifelong learner. Never think that you've got like all the answers to everything if there's nothing new to learn. I'm considered an old guy just about in every tech circle that I'm in, and I'm constantly amazed at all of the new time saving or efficiency saving things that are being invented every day. And if I was one of those people that thought I already knew it all, I'd be missing out on a whole lot of learning experiences. So,
hmm hmm You mentioned you secured the investment from Jason Calacanis and
yep.
his organizations. How was it? What was your experience working with him or folks in his on his team after you secured the investment?
It was great. I mean, they've been a great resource for follow-on questions. I belong to their Launch Founder University community, so I have the pleasure of having like 700 other companies that have succeeded in doing that with them. And I actually had a call today with another company called Nerdcrawler, and we're sharing some ideas, some successes across platforms. Ours will help them, theirs will help ours. So again, that whole instead of trying to learn it all on your own, learning from somebody else who's already done it, the learning curve goes much faster. I mean, yes, you learn from your mistakes, but if somebody's already figured out all the mistakes and the right way to do it, that's nice as well to talk to somebody that already has got the answer to the question. So,
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Even when you are just starting, you're a very young guy or a girl, you want to start a new startup business, whatever it is. A common advice is to, before you're trying to do anything, try to get a job as close as possible to the founders who already know what they're doing. Even if you're not paid super well, this experience will pay off big time in the long term, since you're getting exposed and you start to understand how things actually work to get things done, to put your product to the market, sales, marketing, whatever it is, you are getting real experience. Obviously, you can also just start your own thing and learn from your own mistakes.
mm-hmm.
But just being in those circles with those people who've been through that, it's super valuable. Or getting them on board as your advisors or investors is also obviously super helpful. What's your stance on networking in general? You as a person who promotes networking and business communities, you obviously see value in that. But what's your general take on the value of networking?
I think networking is great as long as you have a goal for the networking. I'm not a big proponent of just wasting a lot of time just to meet other people. You want to be networking, and if you're going to use that time, have specific goals to meet certain people, but also at the same time provide value to the people that you're looking to meet. One of the biggest things that I see in networking is people who don't want to add value to the relationship. They don't want to give as much as they're looking to take. Um, you know, if you do the networking and you're willing to give as much as you're taking, it's going to be a lot more meaningful and you're going to get a lot more out of it. But also know what type of environment and what type of people are in that networking event. If the networking event that you're going to be in isn't going to put you in the environment where you're going to find the resources that you're looking for, then it's kind of a waste of your time. It's like I'm a fencing instructor, so I wouldn't go to a networking event that was talking about, say, ice hockey or volleyball. It's like, okay, not my sport, not my jam. So, but if it was a networking event where they were talking about, helping support, an actual, thing for students or coaches, with training, then it'd be like, okay, then that makes sense for me to go.
Perfect. Great advice. And the last thing we'll cover before ending the episode, I'll let you have a floor and share anything you want with the viewer. Let's say a startup founder, a young person who is just starting to realize what world they ended up in the startup business world. Any advice or anything you want to share with them?
So if you're going to be a tech startup, the big thing is identify whether or not what you want to make is either a aspirin or a vitamin. Probably one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was understanding your solution. If it's an aspirin because you're solving somebody's pain, then people will probably pay for it and pay attention to you. If it's a vitamin and it isn't really stopping any pain point that they have, then it's kind of a luxury and people might not take it every day or buy it every month because it's not absolutely necessary for survival or to keep them away from pain. And then, if you're providing that vitamin or if you're providing the aspirin, figure out exactly if somebody's willing to pay for it. Because if you're not solving a problem that people are willing to pay for, you're just doing volunteer work. And that's fine. And then but just understand that you're going to have, either, rich family that will support you or, you'll be sleeping on somebody's couch because unless somebody's willing to pay for your solution, it's not very much of a business.
Yeah, true. And a quick follow up to that. It's not, sometimes it just seems like most of the problems have already been solved, or at least there are like 10 different products on the market with like millions of dollars of investments. Um, and you realize that your brilliant idea isn't that relevant at the moment because there are already solutions. For example, at some point of our startup journey with our company Narada, we were looking to make an AI note taker for meetings. Before we realized there are already thousands of them, and it's really hard to differentiate in that kind of market. So, do you have an advice for finding the problem or problems that have not been solved, or um, at least having some kind of a positioning or a solution that is differentiated enough to make a business out of it?
So my advice would be to find something that you enjoy or are passionate about. And from there, go to people who are engaged in that industry or that profession and say, hey, if you could have any tool, any resource to make your job easier or your enjoyment of a product more, what would you want? Kind of like when people say, well, I would love to have a flying car, or I would like to have a robot dog, or I would like to have, something that, would make their life easier. That is what I consider kind of the way to finding the next niche market that creates a business. For me, the accounting profession and taxes have been in the United States for 120 years. And then to find out that there's no marketplace for anybody to like go find an accountant on the internet, it's like, that's crazy. But if you talk to, people who had to pay taxes and you're like, well, what's your biggest problem? It's like, well, finding a good, tax professional to do my taxes. It's like, okay. And that kind of led my journey for Tax Titans. For Secondhand Geek, there's already eBay. You're 100% correct. eBay exists, but eBay takes 20% of your money. So our niche is okay, we're going to go after a very tiny market on eBay, but we're only going to take 5% of the market. People want to keep their money. There's not a person that goes, oh, I want to pay more for a product or service. People joke around, MySpace existed before Facebook. Google wasn't the first search engine that existed out there. There were many other search engines that existed before Google. You just have to find something that you're passionate enough about that you're willing to make it better than the other guy. So, it's like, technically I could wear the same, 5 pairs of jeans every day, just buy one pair. But people have different, pieces of clothing because they want some type of variety. There's, how many different automobiles are there on the road? There's not just one car to get you from point A to point B. There's just those little tiny differences that you can make with your company that, make people want it more than your competitor. You just have to find out what it is that someone's going to like. It might be a color, it might be a texture, it may be just one feature that they put you over the edge of the other guy who's currently solving that problem in the market. And if you find a company that's already doing it, go to their customers and say, hey, how could this product that you're currently using, how could it be better? And if you find the same response to that question over and over and over again, then you have the answer. Make the same product, but add that one other feature. Because sometimes a company gets complacent where they have the solution, they're already making money, and they're like, yeah, I don't have to improve. And then very quickly they go away. I mean, take a look at Netflix. Blockbuster, was already out there, had locations all over the United States. All they did was come up with the idea of mailing the people the DVDs directly to their house so they didn't have to get in their car and go rent the movies. And now you don't even do that. Now you just stream from your television set.
Perfect. That's, 3 minutes of you giving that advice would be a super nice piece of content to share, because that's a lot of value right there. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yep. And uh, yeah, so anyone listening, if you're in the US, you're gonna have to pay your taxes very soon. You're gonna have to file those reports. Go to Tax Titans, the link in the description. Find yourself an accountant and make your life easier. And thank you, Alan, for joining me today. Would be grateful to have you again, maybe in a year, maybe with another set of exciting updates. Hopefully, your businesses will grow and follow that stick curve. And thank you again for sharing all of your knowledge today.
Thanks for having me on. Good luck. I appreciate it.